Hey everyone, and Tony here with a review of Mozart's Don Giovanni, which was shown at the Deutsche Oper Berlin. The conductor was Friedemann Layer. The set design was by Piero Vinciguerra, and the costumes were by René Lestadal. The production was by Roland Schwab. The choreography was by Silke Zenze, and the chorus master was Thomas Richter. Now, as I stated in my previous reviews of Marriage of Figaro and Magic Flute, I absolutely love Mozart's operas. You name it. Whether it's Idomeneo, Lucio Silla, Mitridate, La Clemenza di Tito, Der Schauspieldirektor, Die Entführung aus dem Serail, Bastian und Bastian, Don Giovanni, Così fan tutte, Magic Flute, you name it, I absolutely love the heck out of all of Mozart's operas. And who wouldn't love all of them? He was also a musical genius at such a very young age. Think about it. He's composed Mitridate at only 14 years old. 14 years old. He basically wrote all of those difficult yet very exciting lines for Mitridate, Aspasia, Sifare, Farnace, Marzio, Ismene, and Arbate. He wrote all of those difficult yet very exciting lines for all the main singers, and it just shows you just how well placed he is in history. He was absolutely a genius when it comes to music, and people still adore him to this very day. Heck, they even think of him as a god of music. And who wouldn't? My experience with Mozart started out at a very young age, at only 3 years old. Maybe a lot younger, but I was still a baby at the time. And I absolutely loved listening to Mozart, Bach, Beethoven, Tchaikovsky, Schumann, Schubert, all of those great classical composers. Oh, and also Mendelssohn, and yeah, a lot of great classical composers that I've listened to ever since I was still a toddler. Mostly because my grandma, from my mother's side of the family, made me listen to a lot of these wonderful composers, and every single melody just was wow. Just it was just amazing for my ears to listen to. And being exposed to classical music at a very young age definitely was a huge pleasure. And basically, with the opera Don Giovanni, this also has two versions. The one for Prague, which was the country that was originally performed, and Vienna. Now, the Prague version has the happy ending, whereas with the Vienna version, it doesn't really have the happy ending. But with the Vienna version, it has Dalla sua pace and Don Elvira's aria Mitra di. And what I also researched on was that some productions choose not to end with a happy ending in which Don Ottavio, Don Elvira, Donna Anna, Mazzetto, Zerlina, and Leporello sing Questo è il fin di chi fa mal. Yeah, they don't really end, some of them don't really end it with that. And tonight's opera didn't really end with the happy ending. It basically ended with Don Giovanni being dragged to hell, as a lot of other productions did. It was especially in Europe. But I have to say, it was pretty much a great evening. And it's still one of my favorite operas to listen to. I also have a CD with Gyaurov in the title role, and I definitely love his Don Giovanni. But we're not here to talk about Gyaurov's Don Giovanni. We're here to talk about this production of Don Giovanni with Adam Plachetka and a great array of fantastic young singers. Now, going into the production, it's very, very dark. It's quite minimalist, but it was very dark. It's not flashy or anything, but I kind of felt rather uncomfortable watching this type of production. It was dark, it was grim, it was just somber all around. The party scene, even though it's supposed to be joyful and all bright and happy, just turns out more morose and depraved and just unthinkable at times. It was just quite uncomfortable to watch. I really feel that where the production shines is basically the graveyard scene, where we see all of these skeletons with Mickey Mouse ears, and sometimes I don't even know why they had Mickey Mouse ears. And with the commendatore's voice being heard off stage, and there was like fog being smoked out of the theater. It was just wow. That was where it really shone. And another interesting thing about this production is those yellow cards that has the numbers 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I definitely feel that those really state the 7 deadly sins of Don Giovanni, since, well, what do you know? He himself is very well known for being such a lustful person, and definitely not the type of person you would really want to have as a great role model in your entire life. But I thought it was a pretty interesting approach, though not entirely subtle. But what really made it was just the dark atmosphere of this production. But there are times that it can go through questionable routes as well. There is no doubt that this is a Regie Theater. It's pretty experimental, yet at times it can be quite controversial. Remember Hans Neuenfels? Yeah, he got himself into a lot of controversy with all of his weird productions. This production may at times be weird, but it's simply an acquired taste. If you're not truly used to these type of dark, moody, and not always traditional productions, then it may not always be for you. But I'm not entirely against modern productions. It's just that there are some I kind of find interesting and intriguing, and there are some that kind of make me scratch my head. It kind of made me feel both ways. Like, why are there a lot of trash bags everywhere? It kind of feels rather, well, uncomfortable at times, but yeah, it was just a questionable little detail. And sure, basically, this production is an acquired taste. If you're okay with modern productions or Regie Theater productions, then go right ahead. If you're totally not okay with it, then by all means, just try to find some traditional production. So basically, this production is an acquired taste. Personally, I kind of feel that there were times it was quite too dark and almost quite depraved and just kind of, it doesn't always remind me of Don Giovanni. It reminds me of watching Lulu. That's how I basically felt. But still, it's simply an acquired taste. I'm not saying it's bad, nor is it any, well, fantastic or excellent. It's okay. It's simply okay. I mean, it's really noticeable that the people behind this production really tried their best to make a very dark and very foreboding atmosphere for Don Giovanni. But the costumes were pretty good. And another noticeable factor is that Don Giovanni doesn't have always, with Leporello following him around, he doesn't always have him following around. But he has a posse of men in suits and ties that are always with Don Giovanni and pretty much doing all of these exercises and are almost like Don Giovanni's additional servants, which I definitely felt was kind of fun to watch. And the costumes basically remind me of watching a film noir, because let's face it, Don Giovanni is more than just a dramedy. It's a whodunit, it's a romance, it's a comedy at times, it's everything in one. There's no one specific genre for this opera. But yeah, the costumes were actually pretty good, though at times the production as a whole is pretty much an acquired taste, and will probably make you get used to the dark atmosphere that Don Giovanni has to offer. Now, the singers are what truly made this evening. Adam Plachetka, who sang Don Giovanni, was absolutely fantastic in voice and in presence. He has this virile and very masculine, very sexy sounding baritone voice. And his high A, when he said his no during the commendatory scene, was absolutely thrilling. It was very full. It didn't sound so cracked. It sounded so full and so energetic, and his acting was equally as involving. He really paints Don Giovanni as a pretty stoic and a devil may care character, and quite a charmer as well as what every Don should be. He was very charming, very viper like, and very virile, both in voice and in acting. Yeah, his arias were sung very beautifully, especially the Vieni alla finestra and Metà di voi qui vadano. But I really, really love Fincan dal Vino, and I thought that was just absolutely well sung. Sure, I could have preferred a deeper voiced Don Giovanni, like let's say Cesare Siepi, Nikolai Gyaurov, Giorgio Tozzi, Francesco Aliero da Tegna, Samuel Raimi, Ferruccio Furlanetto. I would have preferred all of those other voices. Heck, even Rene Pape, who I love more as Don Giovanni than Leporello. But still, Adam Plachetka did a wonderful job, and he's a young singer who has a lot of promise in the future for a bigger repertoire. And hearing his voice as Don Giovanni, I definitely can hear that he is definitely ready for a lot of the bigger roles to come in the near future. Singing the role of his servant Leporello was Matthew Rose. I basically heard him in a CD of Nathalie Dessay in which she was singing a lot of mad scenes, and I basically heard him as Giorgio and Raimondo from I Puritani and um, Lucia di Lammermoor. And I also have a DVD of him when he was in Lulu with Agneta Eichenholz and Jennifer Larmore as the athlete and the animal tamer. Here, I thought he was absolutely just full of fire and passion. Sure, I would have really wanted him in the role of the Commendatore, but hearing him as Leporello, I definitely have to say he was a fantastic foil to Adam Plachetka's muscular, sexy, virile Don Giovanni. Sure, Matthew Rose is very virile as well and quite manly of a Leporello as well. But he's also quite portly. He's quite a little bit more festively plump than Plachetka as Don Giovanni. And I definitely felt just astonished at just how great he can pull off such a comedic role like Leporello. Not to mention his chemistry with Plachetka as Don Giovanni, I definitely felt was a lot of fun to watch, especially when Plachetka's Don Giovanni was like play fighting with him. It was just so hilarious and really fun to watch these two fantastic singers work off of each other very believably and just extremely perfectly, that you almost really feel this type of chemistry happening, and they did it to a T. Matthew Rose's singing voice definitely has that noble, virile, and rich quality because he's usually the type of singer who's associated with a lot of basso nobile and bass baritone roles. And hearing him as Leporello, I thought he was absolutely fantastic, both in voice and in acting. Heck, during the graveyard scene, he read the inscriptions that were supposed to be on the grave of the Commendatore, and he basically read the German subtitles, and I thought that was a very hilarious touch. It was just so hilarious. He had such great comedic timing and had great chemistry with Plachetka as Don Giovanni. Tobias Queira, who I saw as Zarastro, and the monk from Don Carlo, I definitely felt he was absolutely awesome as the Commendatore. Here is a singer that has a lot of potential to become a basso profondo or basso or even a deeper, richer basso nobile in the near future. Like I said before, he has this virile and very commanding and very sexy, rich, round voice, and he's a pretty young singer as well. He has a lot of promise, and he's able to make the best out of such a very thankless basso profondo role of the Commendatore. Yes, I said it right. The Commendatore is a very thankless role for every basso profondo because he only appears in the first act of the opera. His voice is only heard in the graveyard scene, and then comes my most favorite part of the opera, the Commendatore scene, in which the Commendatore comes in and sings Don Giovanni, Accenarteco. Now that is absolutely my most favorite scene in the entire opera. Especially when you have three low-voiced males, one basso profondo, and in some occasions two basso nobiles, one basso nobile, one bass baritone, one dramatic baritone, one bass baritone, or basso nobile, you name it. This is a great ensemble for three low-voiced males, and if sung correctly and sung right, it can be such a thrilling experience, and especially for something like Don Giovanni. And oh boy, was the Commendatore scene really intense with Tobias Queira as the Commendatore and with Plachetka as Don Giovanni. Oh my god, it was just so passionate. Alongside Matthew Rose as Leporello. Just wow. Top tier singing from three fantastic young singers. And I would have to say, bravo to all of you. Bravo. Now, in the role of Mazzetto, we have Seth Carrico, who I saw as the sacristan from Tosca. He's quite young, and he was able to use that youthful yet quite virile bass baritone voice very well with such a role like Mazzetto. He's still quite young, and it really suits him. It really suits in his favor to such a role like Mazzetto. He's not like Paolo Montarsolo, in which Montarsolo's Mazzetto is all blustery and he doesn't really sound that youthful. I mean, basically with Carrico's Mazzetto, he was youthful, and sure, his acting could be a lot better, because there were moments in which I definitely felt that he was kind of, let's just say, one note. But that's just basically nitpicking. Other than that, I felt that he was able to convey that type of youthfulness that Mazzetto has, because, well, Mazzetto is still a young man in his 20s, and he's still engaged to Zerlina, which proves that, yeah, he's still in his 20s, and, well, they have yet to get married in the near future. And they're pretty much still boyfriend and girlfriend, but still, Carrico's mazzetto was absolutely youthful and very well sung. He actually shows a lot of great musicianship, and it really shows in his, well, aria, O Capito, Signor Si, and a lot of the scenes that he's appeared in throughout the entirety of the opera. Then we have Joel Prieto, who I saw as Narabot in Salome, which was shown at the Staatsoper Schillertheater, as Don Ottavio. He was a very fine musician. Now, what's with me and Latino tenors and me ogling over them? I mean, we have a lot of fantastic Latino tenors like Ramon Vargas, Juan Diego Flores, Rolando Filazon, and many others that I can't really name on the top of my head. And all I have to say is that Joel Prieto is a shining example of one of the best Latino tenors that I've ever heard. He has such great musicianship, such beauty, and just that type of richness in his voice. And it was such a seamless, gorgeous, and just heavenly voice. And his acting was pretty good as well, especially in Donna Anna's Non Mi Dir, where he tries to have Donna Anna marry him, but Donna Anna simply tells him, no, it's not possible, or it just shows them it's not possible. He was able to convey that nobility, that youthfulness, that loyalty that Don Ottavio has. And not a lot of people care for Don Ottavio as a character. Not only is he the only tenor role in this opera, but people say that, oh, he's a pussy, oh, he can't fight, he can't seem to be a lot more ballsy than Don Giovanni and the rest of the low-voiced males. Just by thinking about Don Ottavio, he is kind of the scrappy in terms of Mozart tenors, because people think, oh, he's just simply a romantic type of tenor. He's simply the tenor boy. But I definitely felt that Joel Prieto was able to bring such a beauty and such dignity to such a very thankless character. And he did very wonderfully in terms of musicianship. Now that the men are out of the way with such awesome singing, let's go to the women. In the role of Donna Elvira, we have coloratura mezzo-soprano Yana Kurutsova. She was absolutely fantastic. Her singing was so seamless. This is the type of repertoire I really, really love Kurutsova in. Whether she sings Mafia Orsini, Dorabella, Idamante, a lot of those challenging coloratura mezzo roles, and not really those small roles that she at times found herself singing. Those were the type of roles that she excels in, and Donna Elvira is definitely one of the best sung roles that I've heard from Kurutsova. She had such a homogeneous tone, and she sang with beauty, clarity, and such an incisive voice that was capable of singing a lot of the coloratura that Donna Elvira has to offer. And her stage presence was absolutely amazing as well. She's basically a woman scorned, and a woman who was so frightened of the appearance of the Commendatore. And I thought that she was absolutely wonderful. And I really hope to hear her in a lot more coloratura mezzo roles in the near future. And then we have Donna Anna, sung by Turkish coloratura soprano Burcu Uyar. Well, there were times that her voice was kind of small, and it didn't really sound so incisive. It didn't really sing over the orchestra. But it's totally compensated for such great musicianship and great acting. She basically plays Donna Anna as a very loyal daughter. And someone who is totally unsure if Don Ottavio is the right man for her because, well, her father was killed and she still has to stay very loyal to her father. Otherwise, well, shit's gonna go down. And I definitely have to say that Miss Uyar, even though her voice didn't really sound that big or that loud, it's more than compensated for great musicianship and great acting. And finally, we have the Zerlina, sung by Martina Welschenbach, who I saw as Pamina, Tebaldo, and Karolka. Now, like I said before, she still has that lovely, silvery, light lyric soprano voice, and she was able to make Zerlina such a minxish character. A very minxish and very fun-loving character. And also quite sarcastic as well, but still very lovable, funny, and just overall a lot of fun to watch. Basically, all of the singers were absolutely fantastic. Nobody overdid their parts, but even if they overdid their parts, it was still done for comedy, especially in the case of Matthew Rose as Leporello, Adam Plachetka as Don Giovanni, and in some occasions, Martina Welschenbach as Celina, and Jana Kurutsova as Dona Elvira. Basically, everybody did a fantastic job. Every role was well sung. And the conducting was also fantastic as well. Now, Friedemann Laya definitely did a fantastic job in leading the orchestra. Sure, the Dalla Sua Pace could have been a little bit more lento, a little bit more adagio. But I thought the other numbers were played very well, especially the Commendatore scene. I thought was just thrilling, especially from the opening chords. He was a fantastic conductor. So overall, what more can I say about a fantastic opera like Don Giovanni? It has a lot of memorable characters, memorable arias, a great cast of singers, great conducting, though kind of um, backed from and kind of has a little bit of a shortcoming in terms of the production since it's an acquired taste. But still, there's no doubt that there was a lot of great singing, great music, and it was such fun to watch all around. And kudos to all of the singers for giving such fantastic performances, especially Adam Plachetka as Don Giovanni and Matthew Rose as Leporello. A huge kudos to the both of you. I wish you all the best in your careers, and I hope to see more of you in the near future. So overall, if you haven't seen this production of Don Giovanni yet, and if you're actually open to a lot of regie theaters and opera productions in general that are not really based on the libretto or kind of deviate a bit from the libretto, then go ahead. You won't be disappointed with such great singing. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to tune into my next review. Until then, this is Antoni signing off and wishing you all a good night.